It's starting.
Good evening.
Hello.
Tim and Veronica Bratton.
Cracked Clay.
The ministry's Cracked Clay. Our mess. His miracle.
And message. His message, his miracles.
Yeah. Happy Memorial Day. Thank you for the veterans. We love America. We love the freedom because what you did. Thank you for that.
Well, and thank you for all of those who died, giving their lives for our country and our freedoms, and for the family members who went without their loved ones because they made the ultimate sacrifice for our freedom.
Some of the best things I see is the soldiers come home from the war and surprise their kids or their spouse. What a great story that is. I just love seeing that.
Yeah.
But the people that even sleep by the grave, someone who's deceased, for fighting for freedom. We're all about that same freedom. We want to preserve that freedom. Right?
Yes.
The ministry we have, though, is called Cracked Clay. We are very upfront to never going to talk about meeting each other's needs.
And love banks.
And we all have a love bank.
You were going to talk about going to church today.
We all have a love bank. There's something really special happened today, wasn't it, sweetie? What was that?
The first day back in corporate worship in 10 weeks. It was very, very wonderful. It was very wonderful. Back at Thomas Road, we had to sign up ahead of time. And
what service?
There are 3 services now. We have to sign up ahead of time, but that's okay because we were back we got to worship in the building, live, not just on TV. Feel the music in our bodies. So that was awesome.
Every other row, and it had to be like 3 or 4 spaces between. So there's
family groups. So your family groups could sit together, and then 3 or 4 seats between each family group.
Plenty of room for other people.
Yeah, but we can't have them yet.
But it was so good to see people again, and just to see their flesh, and just to hug them. And Jesus wants us.
That's just we have with people.
Right. God wants us to be with other people. That's why it's so important. We are the church. It's not the building, working motor. But we are the church as born-again Christians. And the church is not for the healthy. It's for the sick.
Well, we do go
Jesus,
to church even though we are community believers. You're right, we are the church. But we go. One of the reasons we go to church is we are supposed to live in community.
To encourage each other.
With other believers. Jesus did that with the disciples, right? He lived in community.
Right.
So we're not meant to live in isolation. Correct?
Because that's why it's so important to have good, godly Christian friends to really build your faith upon. And because we're always in a struggle. It's always a struggle between good and evil as a Christian. The devil is attacking us. That's why we got to read the Bible and stay in His Word and pray and have other friends from church that are like-minded and really
keep us accountable. Accountability partners, people who you can turn to and pray with you.
Right.
When you are going through a tough time. And I was listening to a podcast in the last couple of weeks with Sheila Walsh on it, and she has a new book out about prayer, and she talked about how, which is true, but we just don't think about it very much, how the Lord has a plan for every minute of your life, but Satan also has a plan opposite of that for every minute too, and there's just always this battle for your time. And so we are very happy to be here with you on a Sunday night. I'm a little tired today for some reason. So
you've been traveling all day.
Yeah, I drove and came back. So I drove 5 hours today. So after church. Anyway, but came back and we're ready to do this. So love banks. So what we've been talking about last week, we started going through His Needs, Her Needs. His Needs, Her Needs. And this is a book, if you were not with us last week, that Tim, you want to talk about your dad?
Yeah, Dad would counsel people in church. He was a pastor. And every time he counseled them, he would talk about his needs, her needs, and give them a copy of it. Why it's so important to have your needs met and the power behind that. We're going to talk about that. And the love bank.
So we read this book on the phone at night when we were dating. Read it again after we got married. We did it a few years ago when we first started doing our Cracked Clay Labs on Sunday nights. Now we're going to go through it again. Because when we just finished Love and Respect, we realized that from
coincides
a
with
lot of which it goes hand in hand together. We realized from a lot of the feedback we're getting from people who are with us now that a lot of people were not on for this. And so it is always, it's so valuable. It's really good to revisit it. And once it's really good. It's given us a dialogue, our vocabulary and our marriage that we can talk to each other about our needs. And so we're being intentional about our marriage. So we get married. Usually people get married and they're so excited.
Yes.
And then that wedded bliss, and you say, I do. And then what? What happens? Well, we think a good marriage depends on some mysterious blend of the right people. And we often think that if a marriage turns out badly, then they must have been wrong for each other, right? And it's true that sometimes two inherently incompatible people will get married, but that is highly unusual, says William Harley Jr. He says that's highly unusual. And usually what happens is one or both spouses marital breakups normally happen because one or both spouses lack the skills or awareness to meet each other's needs.
So anybody can succeed by training to know what your spouse's needs are. We all have needs, but a lot of times they don't coincide. So my wife's needs, she's got 5 top needs and I got 5 top needs. That doesn't mean we both have the same top 5 needs. We have to know what they are. And we really have to be conscientious about that to meet that.
So if your marriage is already going down that slippery slope towards the bottom, retraining is possible if you are willing and able to learn about your spouse's needs and to learn to fulfill them and to work on your marriage. But it takes intentionality. So many times we think that when we get married that we can just run our marriage on intuition, right? Wrong. It's not about intuition. It's about being intentional about your marriage. Like I've said so many times, ladies, we plan for the day, but we spend so much time and energy and money planning that special wedding day, but we don't plan for the marriage. We don't do what it takes to make that marriage a good marriage. We think we can just, after the wedding day, we can just go into autopilot. And that's not the case. You can't just go into autopilot. Just like when you're pregnant, you get the books. What to expect when you're expecting was big when I was pregnant with my children. What to expect the first year with that first baby, because you're freaking out, you don't know what to do, you need a guidebook. Well, it's the same thing with your marriages. With your marriages, you need to be intentional, just like you were with your children. You need to read, you need to learn how to have a good marriage. Because it's not something that comes naturally, because inherently we're selfish people, right? I mean, that's biblical. We are inherently selfish people and just want to serve ourselves. And we have to understand what our spouse's needs are, and so that we can think beyond ourselves and to meet their needs.
Right. It's amazing. Before marriage, boy, we're each other's biggest fan, aren't we? Mm-hmm. We can't stop talking about the person we just met. I met the most wonderful woman in the world. I want to tell you about. We talk about each other so much. Our friends are like, man, that's all he talks about.
That's just what I was thinking.
That's all he talks about. I mean, come on, can we talk about something else?
I was going to say.
How about the Browns? Who are the Browns? I want to talk about my lovely wife, and same thing. We talk about each other all the time.
Your friends are so tired.
Why am I so cool? You know I'm so cool because she's my biggest fan, and vice versa. I'm her biggest fan. But what stops that?
So our goal is to teach you how to affair-proof your marriage, right? And that is one, to know each other's needs, and then and to learn how to meet your needs. Okay, and why is that? Because your needs keep score. Did you know that? It's called a love bank.
Subconsciously keep score.
Now Harley.
Right.
William, I always want to call him William. Willard Harley Jr. coined the term of a love bank, and it is so true that if you think about it, every time we all have love banks, and you have a love bank for every relationship, friendship, parent relationship, child relationship, spouse, every relationship that you're in. You have a love bank, and some people do nothing but take withdrawals, and that's your your friend or your coworker who every time they just drive you
You see each
crazy
other
because
with someone.
they're always
Every
withdrawals from you. Every interaction is a withdrawal. And so when they start walking over to your desk, you're like, oh my gosh, here they go. Or they call you, you're like, oh, what do
Roll
they
your
want?
eyes.
What do they want? Because they've taken so many withdrawals from you that your love bank for that person is bankrupt, right? But then there are those people who are always making deposits. Every interaction is pleasurable. So your pleasurable interactions make deposits. Your painful interactions make withdrawals. That's really easy to remember. And so those pleasurable interactions, they're always making deposits. That's what happens when you're dating, right? So when you're dating, oh my goodness,
You're in bliss.
Oh, you're in bliss.
Absolute
He's
bliss.
wonderful. She's wonderful. I'm going to be happy with them
Can't
forever.
stop talking about it. We drive people crazy.
Forever I'm going
Driving
to
people
be.
crazy. We talk about, that's all we want to talk about.
Forever I'm going to be.
What
happy with
happens
them.
though? Why do we lose that?
Well, because we don't understand.
We must communicate our needs. So before my wife and I got married, we sit down and I told her my 5 needs, my top 5 needs, and she let me know her top 5 needs, and we went through each one. So you go around, you see people getting in love, you see people still in love after 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. You know what most of it is? They're meeting each other's needs. Because if you're not meeting each other's needs, that gives the devil the room to start telling you, you don't deserve that. You don't need that. He's not treating you right. She's not treating you right.
Well, we were having this conversation before it started, before we went live, and Tim was saying that, and I was saying that sometimes, though, you don't even realize what's happening, right? You don't
Because
realize.
what happened to commitment and trust, honey?
Well, what happened to commitment and trust? Well, let me go over the needs, okay?
Good.
So we're going to talk about these needs, one each week. But I'm going to read you the top 5 needs for women and the top 5 needs for men.
Well, not necessarily.
I'm going to, but okay, I'm just going to
say
go.
10 needs.
I'm going to go over the needs. Okay,
Yeah.
top 5 needs she can't do without, and he can't do without. Okay, for her, it's affection, intimate, conversational, honesty and openness. Did I say conversational? Conversation, intimate conversation, honesty and openness. Financial support. She needs enough money to live comfortably. Financial support, and she needs him to be a good father. Family commitment. For him, sexual fulfillment, recreational companionship, a good-looking wife or physical attractiveness, domestic support, peace and quiet, and she needs him to be proud of him. Admiration.
And guys, what she just named it though, that could be any one of those. Could be a male and females.
So those, I said
That's
his
why-
and hers, but like we said last week, and again, right, that
That's why I
sometimes
got to
they cross
communicate.
over.
That's why I got to communicate.
Right. Sometimes they may cross over. So I may have a
Right.
need that's the same as his, that's typically on the male list. But I might have all the typical female needs. And my needs, honestly.
And we're not going to tag what they are, but next week we're doing my wife's number 1 first need first. We're not going to tag what it is.
But honestly, I don't, like they say, normally the first thing she can't do without is affection.
That's what we're talking about.
But hold on, but that's not my first need, right?
There you go.
So what I'm saying is he goes over, because he's the therapist, the most high ranked as a female's top 5 needs, and first through 1 through 5, and for the men, but you take the quiz or listen to the needs as we go through them, or get the book and read it and determine what your needs are, and talk it over with your spouse and what their needs are, and it even talks about how to meet their needs. So once you want, and it is really eye-opening. Anyway, I just want to say, so then he goes over in this chapter a long narrative that we're not going to, a story about a husband and wife when they dated. He just thought, oh my goodness, I'm going to be happy forever with her. And then he started thinking about marriage, right? And then they get married and everything changes. What happens after you get married? Then reality sets in, and then where she's to provide him all kinds of recreational companionship, because
And
she
that's the
plays
needs.
tennis with
So
him
the
every
needs we're going to go
Saturday.
through. We're going to go through the next 10 weeks. Is how important for our marriage, because we want to do it the right way. We want to be that couple of people see in couple. Man, they get along so good. We want that to be true when no one's watching either.
Right.
Okay, inside this house, how are they? Is that the same couple? Because we know a lot of people write us and talk to us, and tell us what's going on in their marriage. Like what same thing with our marriages. Okay? Same thing.
So
Devil wants to destroy your marriage, and we don't want the devil to give any room to destroy it. We want him to look at your marriage and goes, that's still tight, man. I'm out of here. Get out of here, devil.
Right. So,
you're not welcome in this marriage because our needs are being met. The devil does not want your needs to be met. He wants the devil in that bedroom. He wants the devil in that house where he can still get room in there.
Okay, so it goes through a story, and we'll talk about different scenarios as we go through the needs. But basically, these couple got married, everything was great, and then things start to little fray, right? And then before he realizes what's going on, before she realizes what's going on, he's having an affair with a woman from work, and they just started slowly talking to each other because she was having a problem at home, and then he was having a problem at home because his wife was taking classes and she wasn't paying attention to him anymore. And so then before you know it, they're having an affair. And so he says, so people are asking at this point in the chapter, should I be concerned that my spouse will have an affair if I don't meet her needs? Should my spouse fear that I might have an affair if my needs aren't being met? In reference to the needs described in this book, he says the answer is yes. And then people get really upset about that. And they're like, well, whatever happened to commitment? What about trust? What about trust? How can a marriage even function if you can't trust each other? Right. And so Mr. Harley says, I'm all for commitment, and I agree that trust is a vital bonding link in any marriage. But my experience with thousands of people has taught me an undeniable truth that if any of a spouse's 5 basic emotional needs goes unmet, that spouse becomes vulnerable to the temptation of an affair. Vulnerable, not necessarily that they're going to act on it, but they're vulnerable. And so what we're trying to do is help you fortify your marriages so that there is no vulnerability there. And more importantly, not only that we're trying to help you fortify your marriages so that there's no vulnerability, but also we want to help you have a great marriage. Have a great, loving,
not just be together for
marriage.
Not just be together for the kids. Right. Not just be together because you'd rather kill each other than divorce. We want you to have a great, wonderful marriage. The one the devil can't get his foot in the door. Okay.
Right. So if you
do it God's way,
your marriage can become so fulfilling and exciting and have more trust than ever before. All right. So what happens with our needs, like we were saying a minute ago, is that our needs are different, and so you start to like put down the other person's needs, and you can't do that because it's not natural for you to. It's not natural for you to, for example, sex and physical affection. Let's just take that for example. That's an example he used here. That like typically a wife needs she showers her husband with affection all the time because she appreciates affection and she wants it so much. But conversely, he smothers his wife with sexual advances because sex is one of his most pressing needs.
And same thing with my wife. She might not. I just don't want my body. I want you to just touch me, affection. Open the door. Wherever the case be, help her out. Okay?
So each person then, they become confused because they are communicating with what their needs are to their spouse, not what their spouse's needs are. Right. So they become confused and at best respond with a mild pleasure. And at worst, they become annoyed, irritated, or frigid because they just don't want to be touched and groped all the time as the woman. Right. But the husband and wife who commit themselves to meet each other's needs will lay a foundation for lifelong happiness in a marriage relationship that is deeper and more satisfying than they ever dreamt possible.
Amen.
And that's what it comes down to.
That's the way God planned it.
Mm-hmm. That's the way
He planned it that way. Because what an example we have in Jesus. You know, Jesus loves me no matter what I do. He loves me. Sin is sin no matter what it is. But consequences are different. But we're imperfect. We're two imperfect people in an imperfect relationship. Only God's perfect. Okay, without Jesus, we're messed up until we get to heaven. But in this earth, we are messed up. We need a Savior. So we need to give each other this need so we don't do something we shouldn't do. Okay? Because we want to do it God's way, not the world's way.
So it's good.
So next week we're going to do she's going to tell us next week what her number one need is. As her husband, I want to meet that need. Why? Because I love her. And I want this marriage to last. I want this marriage to be different. I want to do it God's way. I've had affairs lost. I've had an affair when I was saved. I took my eyes off of Jesus. And I let the devil get into me and do things I shouldn't do. I don't want to do that anymore. I want to do it God's way. I want to meet her needs. That's God's way. Okay?
All right.
Amen.
So next week we will start going over the needs.
Her number one need. We're going to talk about it next week. Okay?
All right.
Don't ever say that you're above it.
Mm-mm.
I get worried about people who tell me that. Oh, that's going to happen to me. I'm good. I've seen so many godly people, men and women, fall that had that attitude. Mm-hmm. Don't do it. Do it God's way. Every day. Every day should be every day is a battle. Every day the devil tempts us all the time, doesn't he? Doesn't he? And if our needs aren't being met,
we're vulnerable to it.
We're vulnerable to it. We love you guys. We love you. Have a great day. Guys, we want to pray for you. We want to pray for you. You have any questions about Jesus? Any questions about marriage? Okay? Message us. Call us, text us. We'd love to talk to you. People come talk to us quite a bit that don't respond here because it's kind of, the
racy.
Yeah, the topic is not comfortable to a lot of people. But we're here to save your marriage God's way. Okay? We love you guys.
I'll give you the tools to save your marriage God's way.
Amen.
Right?
God's
Let us know if you need any prayer.
His
Have
marriage.
a great Memorial Day tomorrow. Remember that it is about those who sacrifice their lives for us to live in freedom. All right?
Not people in church service, but people in the service, right?
Right. Military.
Uh-huh.